Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, cha, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful and today a little bit rainy neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and so wicked happy that you're joining us in our mission to help all families all around the world grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, wherever you find your favorite shows. Today we have 4 amazing guests for you. First, Pam Rice is returning to the show to celebrate her brand new picture book, Sun on My Face. David Gibby will be here to celebrate his adventure series, The Adventures of Patch. And then Jennifer Sipos and Jennifer Freeland will be here to celebrate their debut picture book. It's called Duck and Rabbit ABC Military Adventure. Attention all adventure seekers. Get ready to embark on an epic journey with Pam Rice's The Adventures of Toby Baxter middle grade series. Join Toby Baxter on his thrilling escapades filled with mystery, friendship, and courage. With 2 exciting books already in the series, now is the perfect time to catch up before the release of the highly anticipated 3rd installment. Book 1, The River Elf, The Giant, and the Closet, is a high-flying middle-grade fantasy. If you like daring journeys, hilarious characters, and heartfelt lessons about confidence, then you'll love the 1st installment in the series. Book number 2 is River Home for the Holidays, a humorous, tongue-in-cheek middle school age science fiction book. This quest is filled with holiday fun, dangers, and inspiration, sure to capture the imagination of lovers of thriller and fantasy adventures. But the adventure doesn't stop there. Be prepared for even more excitement in the upcoming release of book number 3, Aloha River Home, The Good Prophecy. Don't miss out on the excitement. Start your adventure today with books number 1 and 2 and be ready for Tim's book number 3 when it hits the shelves. The Adventures of Toby Baxter Middle Grade Series by Tim Wright. It's available wherever books are sold. This episode is brought to you by Jane Escapes to the Jungle of Individuality, a delightful book by Jennifer Nestor. This captivating, award-winning children's book celebrates the beauty of uniqueness and self-acceptance, inspiring young readers to embrace their own individuality by covering important topics like bullying, high-functioning anxiety, and mindfulness. This vibrant picture book is perfect for kids aged 4 to 9. Be one of the first to pre-order and take advantage of the exclusive early bird reward specials starting on Monday, April 29th through Kickstarter, like signed hardcover copies, Jane plushies, Jane backpacks, posters, and more. Act now by visiting JenEstoreAuthor.com. That's spelled JenEstoreAuthor.com and clicking the pre-order button today. Get ready for a heartwarming adventure in Mommy's Day Off, the delightful picture book written by Jacqueline Christine. When young Louie's mom has to be away for a day, he's in for a wild ride with his dad. From waffle and ice cream breakfast to Wild West battles, they embark on an unforgettable journey filled with laughter and bonding. But as the day unfolds, Louie realizes there's a special magic that only his mom can bring to their home. Join Louie as he discovers the irreplaceable role his mom plays in his life, making Mommy's Day Off a touching tale of family, love, and the unique bond between a mother and her child. Get your copy today at Amazon or at JacquelineChristine.com. My friends, we are in for a treat. Joining us right now from the city of Chicago. Our guest returns to the show to celebrate her brand new book. It's called The Sun on My Face. Please welcome back author, illustrator, artist, Pam Rice. Hey, Pam, how are you?
I'm good, Gently. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm so excited to have you back on. We've worked hard on this. Pam and I sat down to start recording this a couple of weeks ago, and then Mother Nature interfered with us and sent a power shortage or power failure throughout Chicago. And so we had to reschedule. But I think, they all say good things come to those who wait, and we've been waiting, and it's really good to have you back here.
Yeah, it's good to be with you.
Yeah. Pam, tell us about The Sun on My Face, please.
Well, The Sun on My Face came about a few years ago when I was thinking about, a topic, a subject that I could write on. And it's something simple came to my mind about when I was young. There were, I would always go outside, and I would always find being outside very fascinating, and the sun, the clouds, the bugs, the this, the that. And so I said, well, let me elaborate on this a little bit, and then, pick out maybe 5 or 6 subjects to hit on and kind of elaborate on those. And so I just go through talking about how Lulu, who is the main character, finds interest in everything. She finds interest in the pond that she lives close to, with the birds and the swans, and feeding, fish and having them nibble at her fingers, and it just goes through, and it talks about how she would, follow her shadow, or her shadow would follow her. And so it goes through a series of events and things. So it's, it's an interesting little piece, and it's been very popular, and it's just a delightful book. I find it very delightful, and so do a lot of the other readers.
Yeah. You just reminded me of somebody that I haven't really paid attention to a lot, and used to be very important in my life, and that's my shadow. I don't think I've noticed my shadow for ages. And as you were speaking, I remembered back to when I was young, and just being fascinated with my shadow, and would enjoy taking walks where I could see my shadow. And there were days when I would just go outside specifically so I could walk with my shadow.
Yeah, and trying, to see if you could trick your shadow. You make these quick gestures and see if, heaven forbid, the shadow would be doing something else. But, just like you said, following your shadow, and when the sun came out brighter, the shadow got heavier and darker, and when the clouds came over, your shadow would disappear, and so, yeah, that's some of the things those are some of the things that I kind of explore in this book. She would find these, empty logs, and find, bugs, and she'd poke in them, and find, all kinds of insects flying all around. And so, it just goes with, being outside and just finding different things to, that interest her. I know there's one part where her neighbor has a bird feeder, a little bird house. And, so she goes over to it, and she looks inside, and there are 2 birds inside, so she spends some time, just checking them out, and it, just goes through, like I said, a series of events. And one of the things that I really like, that I used to do all the time, is fireflies at night, at dusk, when they would come out, and we would collect them in jars, and I'm sure you probably had that experience at one time or another, where you would take the lights or the little bulbs from them and we would paint them, put them all over our bodies and go into a dark room and stand in front of a mirror and just make all kinds of gestures. So, those are the kinds of things that a lot of people don't think about, but they've done it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the book, and it's easy. It's an easy reader. And it goes through, different steps on different activities that she does, skateboarding and, watching the birds follow her through the park and so that's the gist of the story.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, and this is going to sound silly, but a lot of kids these days, they can't imagine, because I remember being up in front of an audience of kids and talking about the fact that, when I was growing up, we had 3 TV stations to choose from, and there was only one color TV in our neighborhood, and that was when I was 10, and we actually all gathered outside. And when kids hear about this childhood with very limited technology, they're kind of horrified. But it was a wonderful way to grow up because we had all this natural technology, if you will, all around us.
Yeah, I mean, it was all around us, and the kinds of things that you become very creative when you have very little.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the essence of the book is that Lulu finds things to do without having all these items and elements to deal with. She just deals with what she has, and that's what we had to do too. We just had to, I take for instance, we had when a neighbor would get a new refrigerator, you had these huge boxes, and we lived next to this decline, and what we would do would go up to the highest part and get inside and just roll around all the way down the hill in this refrigerator box.
Yeah.
And up and down and up and down. And we spent hours just doing that. And we made our own skateboards out of 2x4s and an old pair of steel skates. And, so those are the kinds of things that I think is missing a lot these days.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, those old refrigerator boxes, they were almost indestructible because they would last for weeks. I mean, by the end of the second week, they'd be all tattered and ripped up and whatnot.
Yeah.
But, boy, you'd create a fort with them. You'd roll down hills with them. You'd get inside and you let your friends knock you over.
Yeah. I mean, there was always something to do, making your own kites and that's one of the things Lulu does, and she enjoys doing that and watching the birds follow her kite all around, and so it just goes through a lot of the events that she gets into, and she has fun doing it.
Yeah. And the neat thing about The Sun on My Face is obviously it's a great book to sit down and read with your kids and talk about getting out into nature and then actually getting up with your kid and going out into nature. And I think the wonderful thing about helping our kids develop that love of nature and love of the outdoors and the quote-unquote real world is that they learn at a very young age that there's an alternative to a lot of the negativity and anxiety-inducing world of the internet.
Sure.
You don't have to stay on and worry about who likes your post because, get outside and watch those birds in that bird feeder because they're never going to judge you.
Right. And find all kinds of different formations and clouds and shapes, and each cloud has sometimes a funny shape that reminds you of something else. And, hey, it's Earth Day.
Yeah.
And her Earth Day is every day.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
that's the fun part about it. that she finds, being outside, fun. It's better than, because she doesn't really have a lot, that she works with what she has, uh, that's what makes it enjoyable.
Yeah.
And she enjoys the daffodils and the little, what do you call it? The dandelions, and you blow on the dandelions and they just scatter all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, so, that's it's a very good introduction to things to do, when you're outside.
Yeah.
For young kids.
Yeah. Yes. And what a great way to spend time with your kids. And Pam, you were mentioning cloud formations. A couple of years ago, I drove across the continent and back, and we obviously can see the sky here in Boston and in Chicago, but there's so many buildings around, and we can't see how vast the sky is. And when I was driving through the Southwest, through those desert areas, wow, I would look out, and the sky just seemed so huge. And the clouds were just so immense, and I had to stop and just get out and appreciate it. And it was, the world around us is absolutely gorgeous.
It is. And you'd be surprised at the number of things that you can discover that you never realize. I mean, people walk past so many things every day and don't notice the little things. We used to notice the little cracks in the sidewalk, and the ants would have these sand mounds they would build out coming through the cracks, and the whole family of ants would scatter about around these little mounds of dirt and sand, and we would blow them over, and they would come back and they would build them back up again. And so, I mean, that's just some of the things. Those are some of the things that you notice when you're young, and so you become familiar, and you start looking at these things and noticing them all the while as you're growing up. And you grow up knowing and becoming familiar with Mother Nature.
Yeah. Pam, you've been on the show a lot and celebrated a lot of books. It seems like a lot of your stories, a lot of your writing revolves around this kind of reminiscing and kind of going back to nature, going back to simpler times, going back to celebrating our relationships with family and friends.
Yeah, and it's because that's my source. That's my source for writing. A lot of people have writer's block and they don't know what to write about, and sometimes I think get off into stories where there really is no substance. But when you can go back, and you have a source that you can go to, or people that you can write about, or there's like a vase that you can go into and just kind of pull out all these stories. And memories are some of the best ones to write about.
Yeah.
Because you can embellish them, of course. and I think that's the fun part, is when you could take it to another level where maybe it didn't go in the actual situation, but you can certainly draw on those memories. And I had a great childhood, and I always stayed busy, and we always had a lot to do. And being creative, that was something that was never lacking. We, it was always, we even built, I remember one time we wanted a clubhouse. We'd watch this Our Gang comedy thing, and we built this clubhouse out in the backyard, and found pieces of wood and all kinds of elements. And my mother came home from work, and she said, "What in the world is this? So we had to dismantle it all, but the fun part was just finding the elements and putting it together.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a whole nother thing. I mean, I could actually write about that.
Yeah.
We would get together kids in the neighborhood, about 8 or 9, and we'd ride 2 or 3 miles to a fun park.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in today's world, that would be very kind of unsafe and difficult to do. But those are the kinds of things that we did. And one of my books reflect that particular event.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to elaborate on that, and that was fun to do too.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point, in that in addition to not going outside and spending so much time on screens, one of probably the biggest difference between how we grew up and how kids are growing up today is that kids growing up today, they don't really have a chance to go outside and be by themselves very much.
Yeah, I remember we would just sometimes we just sit around, outside and I guess I was more of a, what did one of the phrases one of my elementary school teachers said, she's always looking out of the window. That's what she told my mother in the parent conference. She's always looking out the window.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's because I was thinking, and I was looking outside at the trees, and I was looking outside at the clouds, and this and that and the other. And that was always a distraction,
yeah.
Which was a good one, but certainly not in the classroom. But a lot of people sometimes I think are afraid to be by themselves.
Yeah.
They find it uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think that all kids should learn how to enjoy being by themselves sometimes and learning, maybe to pick up a book or, come up with something creative to do. And it doesn't hurt. I think, like I said before, you always become creative when you need to stay busy, when you need something to do. There's always, even if you don't have any actual elements to work with, you can always come up with something, whether it's just reading a book or just looking at the clouds.
Yeah, I agree with you. Boy, you've brought back so many great memories to my mind, and I think The Sun on My Face is going to bring back a whole lot of memories to parents who are reading it to their kids. What a great way, not only to inspire families to get out into nature with their kids, but what a great, The Sun on My Face can be a great catalyst just to get families and parents talking to their kids about the ways that they grew up and the things that they used to do, and helping our kids see us as human beings.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a great book to share and to read, and like you said, a lot of parents will be able to relate to it.
Yeah.
And I think when kids are taken to the park or out on camping trips or wherever they may go with friends or family, that they always come up with something that's a little different to do.
Yeah.
Because they no longer are inside and they're no longer on phones and computers, and so they take advantage of what's around them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we should let everybody know where they can go to find out more about The Sun on My Face and to discover all the beautiful books that you've created, because Again, I mentioned at the top of the show that you're an illustrator, but you're also an artist. I think that there's, the illustrations in your book, I think could easily hang in a museum because they're really gorgeous.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I try to, when I create them, each spread in the book is a piece of art. And occasionally, when people make comments on a particular book and they say, I really like this spread, I like this particular page, I'll print out a 11/17 or 18 by 24 and send it to them because it's frameable.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take the words off, but I look at each spread as a work of art, and I try to use a lot of textures and colors, and it's all part of making the story come to life. I think people if they don't even read the words, they can see the images. And a lot of times the images themselves will tell the story.
Yeah.
A friend of mine made a comment a couple of years ago and said, I had some illustrations laid out, just simple illustrations, spot illustrations, and they said, I can make a story out of this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she didn't know that I actually did the stories, the illustrations were done around the stories. In other words, they already existed with a story.
Right.
And so, that was one of the best compliments I've had because, the illustration itself spoke to her.
Yep. Yep. Well, yeah. One of the things we encourage parents to do is to take a picture walk through a book. And, maybe, if your kid is able to read, maybe cover up the words with, one of those little sticky note mm-hmm. things and just go through and imagine what the illustrations are telling, what story the illustrations are telling, and then go back and read the words. It's a great way to just read a wonderful book in a different way and also encourage kids to express themselves and express their imagination.
Yeah, well, I think it's a fun way to learn mm-hmm. Because visuals will really speak sometimes louder than the words themselves. People are visual. When they go to a store or any place and they see something they like or they want to buy, it's all visual. People are visual.
mm-hmm.
Human beings are visual.
Yeah.
They go a lot on what they see, and they usually learn the substance later.
Yeah.
And you know how that goes. People buy clothing because they like what it looks like,
yep.
And it may not even look good on them, but they like it,
Well, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out all about your great books.
Well, Amazon.com has The Sun on My Face, and also my website at PamRiceDesign.com. And there's a tab for Kid Shelf books. And all the books are laid out with a small explanation of what they are and where you can get them.
Yeah. And I would encourage everybody also definitely click on the Kid Shelf Books link to find the books, but also click around Pam's website because there's a lot of really beautiful art there. You'll be happy that you did.
Yeah, it's expansive, and I found that I had to build various sections because, I was leaving stuff out, and I just wanted to. Sometimes you just need a place where people could just go and browse, and that helps. That helps people find out who the true Pam Rice is. They see the whole picture. I think it does really help.
Yeah. Well, we want to encourage everybody to check out The Sun on My Face. It is the beautiful new picture book from our guest, Pam Rice. Pam, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thanks, Gently. It's always a pleasure. It really is. I appreciate it.
We would like to invite you to embark on a transformative journey with The Invisible Backpack, A Life of Courage, written by William Hartwick. Are you burdened by past hurts, grief, or trauma? William's heartfelt narrative, born from his own struggles with depression and Tourette syndrome, offers a pathway to lightening your load. Just like you, he knows the weight of an invisible backpack, growing heavier as life unfolds. But in his touching story, William invites you to courageously unpack it, making space for forgiveness, acceptance, tolerance, and love. Join William on a profound exploration of healing, blessings, and inner strength. Through William's vulnerability, he reveals the power of embracing your true self. Don't miss this inspirational tale of resilience and hope. Order your copy of The Invisible Backpack today and embark on a journey of self-discovery and courage. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Utah. Our guest is here today to celebrate his series of adventure stories that talk to us about Patch. And we're going to find out more about Patch in just a moment. Please welcome to the show, David Gibby. Hey, David, how are you?
I'm terrific, thank you.
Tell us all about the adventures of Patch, please.
Well, Patch is an invention of mine that goes back years and years and years. And I love to tell stories. My kids like to hear them. In fact, it's about a giant brown bear, a grizzly, that happens to have a different set of values than most bears. He is interested in everybody, in the kids, and in the things he can do to make the life fun for kids.
It sounds like a wonderful series of books that I think I would have really gotten into when I was 10, 11, 12 years old.
That would be, well, even younger.
Yep.
I mentioned to you earlier that I had a grandson, Ian. He ran out to me. He started school this year.
Oh.
So he's 5, and yet he just, we stayed the night at their home, and I had to tell him 2 Patch stories at night and the 1 in the morning before he could go to school. So it's kind of fun.
That's wonderful. These books take us out into nature, and I think that that's something that way too many kids don't have an opportunity to experience. I was really fortunate when I was a kid. We grew up in the city, but my dad would always take us out camping at least once a year, sometimes more often, and oftentimes it was fairly primitive camping where I'd get up and drag water back from the watering hole in first thing in the morning. But it was a really wonderful way to introduce me to nature and help me feel comfortable out in the woods, in the forest. Can you talk a little bit about the value and why you think it's important for kids to have that connection with nature?
Well, I think there's 2 things in my mind. First, there's a relationship between the parent who gives them the story or reads them the story. And I'll show you this one little book right here. Mm-hmm. This is Patch 1. We actually have 5 published, and the last book has all 5 stories in it. You can get it that way if you want to. But anyway, what's really cool about these is the images the kids see are pretty amazing in the books. They're really good. And my son did all that for me, so I got to give him the credit. But what's fun is what I like to tell people that buy the book is change the names out. If you got in somebody named Ben and you got a Michael, then change the name to Michael as you read it. And so the kids feel like they're part of the story. And I've actually had children that have come to me afterwards and said, remind me what I did yesterday with Pat. I mean, they actually become to where they feel like they're part of the story. And that builds a relationship between the parent or whoever is providing the books or who's reading them to the child. And that's number one. I think that's really important because I've had kids from the neighborhood run up and give me hugs when they've heard a Patch story, which I think was kind of fun. because I included them as part of the story.
Right.
That's the first thing. And the second thing is you treat people kindly. Patch treats everybody kindly. He's protective. He's a fierce bear if he needs to be, but he gentles right up if he needs to after that episode, so that everybody knows he loves the participants of the story. And the same thing with the other animals are involved. We have a mountain lion named Puma. He becomes involved after the third book. And later on, we have other animals that we incorporate into it. And the nice thing is that then as part of the book, we give a little information on how to treat a bear, what you do, what you don't do, things like that, which they're not part of the story, but they're part of the things that the kids can read and become aware of. And so you got the idea that you treat people nicely. It doesn't mean it's just animals. You treat your friends, you treat your associates, your schoolmates, you treat them kindly, because that's the way the bear treats everybody. Mm-hmm. And but it doesn't mean you can't become protective if you need to be. And so I like those two features, the closeness, and then the kids have fun. And afterwards, they talk about them. I'll have kids read a story, and then they'll tell me about it for days afterwards, the same story. So I think those are some of the things I want to have happen. And luckily, with this particular bear, they've happened, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, I love that message that you can be strong and protective, and that's not a bad thing. That, equally important is that you don't have to, that you can be kind and be strong and protective. I think sometimes nowadays we hear, if somebody's strong, that's a bad thing, and they're, and they're the people to stay away from. And, but this is teaching us that, the opposite, that somebody who's strong and protective can also be kind and is a great example for kids to follow.
Well, I like to hope that that's happened in the books. It's interesting. When my son decided we were going to start publishing the stories, and he got really insistent. In fact, the first book came out, I didn't know he had taken all the effort to illustrate it. But one of our friends in the neighborhood happens to be a gal by the name of Cammie, and she literally lived on our home. And when she found out the books are coming out, she said, "Now I'm going to be part of those, aren't I?" It was important to her. She's an adult. She's got grandkids, but she wants to be part of that history, because to her it was really important for her growing up to become part of the Patch story. And what's nice is that it wasn't just Cammie; it was the whole neighborhood. We luckily raised our family in an area where there was a lot of kids, our kids' age, mm-hmm. throughout the neighborhood. And so we'd go out on the front lawn, and we'd sit in the shade, and the kids would all come. You didn't even know how many were going to show up, but it would be 4 or 5 extra kids besides our own family that would sit down and hear the Patch stories, and we would try and incorporate them into the stories so they felt like they were just as much a part of it as our children were. And I think that's it. And I've had 2 or 3 people that have bought the books now, and they're saying, we did exactly like you said. We've switched out the names. When I come to somebody named so-and-so, I put my son Jake in there. And it works. And they're excited because their kids are now enjoying it and loving the tales. And they are the ones that are in the middle of the adventure. The things that are happening in the book, they take on themselves. They're part of it. And I think that's kind of cool. I love it.
Yeah. What was the inspiration for Patch? Was this a bear that you encountered on one of your mini adventures?
No. Although, we live in an area where there are bear, and you've got to, when you go camping, you basically want to take some provisions. I usually take a little bit of bear spray if you need to have it around. But, so that's not an encounter. My wife and I have both seen bears recently on some trips. In fact, on one trip we saw a black bear and a grizzly. The grizzly was quite a ways off, but I couldn't believe the people out there playing with a black bear. And I thought, you guys are crazy. You don't do that. But anyway, but we're in an area where they're out there, and the kids want to know about them. And I've taken my kids fishing, and sometimes the batch. I don't remember exactly the first batch story. I just know that when I told the first batch story, then the kids all wanted to know, well, how did Patch get his patch? How did it? And all these questions came up. He's got a patch over one of his eyes where his fur, instead of being brown, is white. And the kids want to know how that happened, and so that becomes the next story. And so that's kind of fun. But I've been telling stories to my kids ever since they were old enough to listen. And we didn't get started on Patch. For some reason, after the first Patch story I told, that's what they wanted to hear. Oh, tell us another Patch story. I said, okay. So I know. And the nice thing about it is you can come up with hundreds of different tales. When you can have an accident fishing, or you can catch some big fish and the bear is really excited to get them, or you could get up there and get caught in a rainstorm, or you could have somebody who's neighboring that aren't knowing what they're doing. They accidentally are playing with fire and they've started a small fire. And Patch, you guys go down and rescue the situation. There's just so many things you can come up with, and they're fun. Yeah. And the kids feel like, I did this and I did that. And they get all excited about it. Of course, they didn't do it, but they think they did. Right. And it's interesting because the one grandson I mentioned you, now all he wants to do is see animal books. That's all he cares about. Because now he's part of the outdoors. He's become part of that nature scene. And so he wants to see the rabbits. He wants to see the bears. He wants to see the wolves. He wants to see everybody that's in the outdoors, and he wants to be part of it. So he gets a book out, and I got him a book the other day, and I gave it to him. And what was really funny was I turned to a picture, and he told me everything about that animal. I mean, he knew the entire book. And I thought, I just gave you this book. How did you learn? Oh, I looked it up online. Every animal. I couldn't believe it. So, I mean, that's kind of fun, is that it gives them incentive to get into nature as we know it, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I want to thank our guest, David Gibby. Hey, David, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, it was so nice to meet you, and I'm glad you're doing these wonderful things. This is not only good for me, but for anybody who wants to tell a good story and make somebody happier. I like it.
Hey there, families! Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? Look no further than our STEM is Family Fun video series. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw, there's something for everyone in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page and let the learning and laughter begin. STEM is Family Fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. My friends, we are in for a treat. We have two amazing guests for us today. First, coming from Denver in Colorado, she is here to help celebrate Duck and Rabbit ABC Military Adventure. Please welcome to the show, Jennifer Sipos. Jennifer S., how are you?
I'm great, Jed. Thank you so much for having us today.
I'm delighted to have you. Her co-author is also on. She is joining us from Massachusetts, and her name is Jennifer Freeland. Jennifer F., how are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
I'm excited. I am going to, for the first time here in the podcast, use that last initial to help us keep track of who's answering and who I'm asking. So why don't we start first close to my home, Jen F. What's a Duck and Rabbit ABC Military Adventure all about?
Well, it is a narrative story about a duck and a rabbit who show different experiences that they have that are related to the military. It's supposed to help out military kids to be able to talk about their experiences with a loved one who serves in the military.
And Jen S., we were talking a little bit about this. Both of you are military families. Jen S., you were telling me that your husband is active duty in the Air Force for 19 years. Thank you so much for your service, and also please thank him. And I mention your service because military families are also serving. You military families make tremendous sacrifices to support their family member that's in the military, and I just can't thank you and all the military families enough for all that you do for us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's definitely a family affair. Military families, you move every 2 to 3 years, so their career really affects their family members.
And it affects their friends sometimes. It just so happens I'm going to be leaving the studio in a couple of hours to pick up my daughter. She was over in Germany visiting with one of her friends who is serving in the Air Force. And when she arrived in Germany about a week and a half ago, she found out that her friend just received transfer orders. The friend is coming back to the States, and the military had to move their furniture the day my daughter arrived. So they ended up sleeping on air mattresses for a couple of days.
Yeah, that's pretty common. We've spent several months actually either in hotels or on air mattresses. Sometimes you arrive at a place much earlier than your home goods do.
Yeah. So, Jen F., I guess this is part of the mission of the book, if you will, to kind of let kids in the military see themselves reflected positively in the pages of the book?
Yes, correctly. And to let them maybe have an outlet to talk about things too that might be a little bit more challenging or something that's fun or different, whereas maybe other kids don't have to move every couple years, or other parents or guardians aren't leaving for months at a time for work, that this would allow kids to talk about it, or even though the characters are not real people, to see an example of somebody, even if it's a character, going through a similar experience as them.
Yeah. Jen S., I imagine there might be somebody out there thinking, wow, Jen's husband has been in the service for 19 years. Why do they still need to move every couple of years?
I think that they really want their the people in the military to have a diverse skill set. So they move them every couple of years to put them in different positions, different leadership positions. And so they have really well-rounded officers and soldiers coming out of that.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. Now, Jen F., is your family still active in the military?
My husband just got out of active duty last summer, but now he is working full time for a reserve unit. So he's still goes on trips and still is pretty busy almost every single day with the military.
Yeah. Jen S., I'm imagining, we like to celebrate the facts that books can be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And so we talked a little bit about giving kids in the military a chance to see characters like them portrayed in a book. I'm imagining that Duck and Rabbit ABC Military Adventure would also be a great window for families that aren't serving, that don't have a loved one serving, to see the kind of sacrifice that military families make for all of us.
Yeah, that's definitely what we were thinking with this book as well. We wanted military kids to see themselves and see their life experiences, and we also thought it would be great for kids that aren't in the military to understand about the military lifestyle a little bit, because it truly is a very unique lifestyle. And any type of understanding that kids can have about new kid coming into their class and how they might be able to support a military family would be wonderful. that comes out of this book.
Yeah, Jen F., we talked a little bit before we started recording about my experience performing in a couple of Department of Defense schools, but that's not always the case. Kids don't always go to a base school. Oftentimes they're going to a public school near the base, and so it would be important for the other kids, that kid's classmates, to kind of have an understanding about the lifestyle that kid is living.
Yeah, my kids have actually never been to a base school. They've always been in public schools. And so I think it's really nice for their peers to understand a little bit about their background or why they may have switched schools so many times. My son's only been to a school for 1 year at a time. He's never been to a school and returned as a student. I'm hoping next year he will. But I think, too, as a new student, it can be hard to come in to a new environment. And even if it's not due to the military, I think a lot of students could relate to that, and a lot of kids in general. Yeah,
absolutely. Jen S., I'm curious, how did you two come together to write this book?
I think it's kind of a cute story, actually. We were both stationed, our families were stationed in Pensacola, Florida, and we were nowhere near base. We were at a coffee shop, and I would often go there to draw when my daughter was at dance class, and Jen Freeland would also go there to paint to get a break from her kids every once in a while. And I was so excited. Anytime I see someone painting or drawing in public, I approach them and just chit-chat. And so we were just chit-chatting, and we were surprised to find out that our husbands were both in the military and actually in the same squadron and knew each other. And we had both previously been stationed at the same bases. And we just started laughing when we found out that our names were both Jen. So it was instant friendship. And we have kept that friendship going since we've both moved since then from Pensacola, but we've kept that friendship going, and we often share our work together and critique one another's work. Yeah. So it's been really fun.
Yeah. And Jen F., what was the moment like when you decided, hey, we should write a kids book together?
Well, Jen S. would always send me these super fun and creative and even a little comical drawings of characters. And I always thought to myself, you would make the best children's book, and especially maybe an ABC book that you could have much of the drawings show what's happening rather than so much with the text. And Jen S., I think, appreciated maybe my painting because I would always send her my watercolors before I gave them to customer for some critique. And then we both thought, hey, why don't we do something together? I'll paint in your drawings and let's see if we can make this work. And then that was the moment where we decided we really wanted to do a project together. And then after that, we worked out how we were going to make the ABC book for military kids.
Oh, very cool. I love that. That is a cute story.
We complement each other really well because Jen Freeland is so detail-oriented, and I'm pretty loose with my drawings. And so putting them together, it's kind of magical finding out what happens.
Really, really fun. I'm curious, Jen S., is this the first of hopefully many books to come from this team?
Yeah, we are committed to these characters, and we're actually already working on the next in the series, which will be a countdown to deployment.
Countdown to deployment. Now, Jen F., I'm just going to wonder, maybe there's some, because people can have very strong feelings about the military. If there's somebody out there that's listening to this and they're like, oh, war is horrible and the military is, I don't want to talk to my kids about this. what would you say to that? I mean, I certainly agree that war is horrible, but it's a part of life, unfortunately, right now. What would you say to that family that's like, no, I don't want my kids even thinking about this?
Well, I think it's a hard question and also a good question. And I've thought about it a lot with my kids and with marrying my husband before I did. But I think that the military kids or kids that have a loved one in the military, often a parent, they didn't have a choice if they didn't have anything to do with the war or anything like that. They are separate from it. And I think that the book is meant to support them and very separate from any support of a war or not supporting a war. I think that they're two separate issues. I know I'm not quite answering your question, but I think they're two different things. And no matter what, whether you support a war or don't support a war, I think that most people should be able to support kids in their experiences.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you would both agree, Jen S., that no one is a bigger advocate for peace than the people in the military. They're put their lives on the line. They would prefer not to have to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's the people in the military have their perspectives on politics and everything else is just as diverse and as the people outside of the military. Military people are definitely not pro-war. I think a lot of people that join the military join because it's an opportunity to get your education paid for, and just a leg up on a good career.
Yep, and certainly the idea of serving your country, I'm sure, is a big motivation too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Jen F., where can we go to find out more about Duck and Rabbit ABC Military Adventure and more about both of you?
You can go to militaryfamilybooks.com, and that's our publisher's website, so you can find all the information about the book. Our book is also available on Amazon. You can find more information about me at JenniferRoseFreeland.com, and I also have an Instagram as well, Jen Rose Watercolors.
Awesome. And Jen S., where can we go to learn more about you?
You can go to my website, jennifersipos.com. I also have an Instagram account, Sip Illustrations.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the authors and illustrators of Duck and Rabbit ABC Military Adventure. Our guests have been Jennifer Sipos and Jennifer Freeland. My friends, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate this opportunity.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. I want to thank my amazing guests, our wonderful sponsors, my fantastic team. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of her support. And most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.